Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Ruben Amorim blames himself and his players for cuts made by INEOS and the Glazers. Absolutely shocking, we'll be talking about that. Also, Pogba, Rashford, Sancho, could they be returning to Manchester United? And why INEOS have played a big hand in Spurs' January transfer window. We're going to be talking about that as well. Lots to get into. The latest on Ahmad, the latest on Martinez and their comeback dates and injuries. Apologies for being a little bit late. Doing journalistic work on the United Stand is not what we started the United Stand for, but that's why I'm late. 10 minutes of doing stuff that amazingly journalists don't do. I mean, I think, what does a modern journalist do around Man United? Wake up in the morning, check their phone. Have I got a message from United about what I can write about? I mean, do they not actually go and find information about stuff that people would be interested in? Well, okay, we'll do it again. That's absolutely fine. Andre Smith, welcome to the Members Club. Freedom Fighters Assemble, says John. It is match day as well. Also, can I give a big shout out to Grace? This is via Evie, who said it's her 21st today. Happy birthday to Grace, who is a big fan of the community and the channel. So happy birthday to Grace and anybody else whose birthday is today. Lots to get into. Will Pogba, Rashford and Sancho return? Look, people might run with those headlines. We've actually spoken to a few people about how it could happen. Would it happen? Would they want it to happen? How much it would cost? So we'll go through all that in a moment because guess what? Ruben Amorim, 10 o'clock last night, the embargoed section of the second part of the press conference came out and he was asked a question about Jadon Sancho returning to Manchester United. Incredible question, incredible answer. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the thing that's really got me angry at the start of this show is that Amorim was also asked about the job cuts, right? This is what Ruben Amorim had to say about Manchester United cutting jobs and what that actually means and how it impacts the team. And he said, I think it's really important for us in the first team, the coaches and players, not to ignore that people are losing their job. People are losing their jobs, so we have to acknowledge that. And the biggest problem is the football, because we spend the money, we're not winning, and we're not in the Champions League. So the revenues are not the same. We spent a lot of money in the past, and now we have to be careful with finances. We cannot rebuild the team the way we would like. People are losing their jobs. Of course, it's hard to have that feeling of people safe in their jobs, and it infects the environment. We cannot ignore it. We acknowledge that problem, and I want to say that the responsibility is the first team. Oh my God. So the manager of Manchester United now, and I've sensed a change in Amorim anyway in his last press conference, is now coming out and saying that the job cuts are the responsibility of him and the first team. So not only are the players playing under massive pressure and everything else, they're now responsible for people losing their jobs. Who and why is Ruben Amorim talking shit? What are you talking about? Who's telling you to say this? Why are you fronting up and defending the Glazers and INEOS? It's got nothing to do with you, why people are getting the sack. It's got nothing to do with the first team, why we're getting the sack. Look at what is actually causing the problems at Manchester United, mate. And don't fucking start doing that. We've all got your back. You're talking to us on a daily basis. Sense. That's nonsense. You are not responsible for the sackings of people that were sacked before you even bloody came here. They'd already sacked 200 people before you even bloody came here. They're not sacking people because we're not in Europe and we're not in the Champions League. That is not why they're sacking people. They're sacking people because they have to save money because the club is in debt because of the Glazers. They're sacking people because we have to pay massive amounts of debt interest every year. It's not because of you and it's not because of the first team. I'm absolutely adamant that we should be calling this out. And if Ruben Amorim wants to chat about it, the door is open. Come and have a chat on the United Stand, mate. If you want to defend your position that you're responsible for people losing their job, I'm adamantly shouting at you, you are not. Do not take that on your shoulders. You've got enough to deal with at that football club. Mate, you've been thrown into an absolute shit show. An absolute shit show. You've got a distinctive style of play. You've been forced to come in November. You haven't been given the players. The players are a load of shit. And now you're taking responsibility for job cuts. You're the manager of Man United and you've been thrown under a bus, mate. Do not take responsibility for job cuts. Absolutely not. Big mistake. Do not give the British media a stick to hit you with because they will whack you with that, mate. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You cannot take responsibility for that. It's disgusting. We are paying tens of millions of pounds every year in debt interest because of the Glazers and because INEOS bailed them out. That is why people are being sacked. We are on the brink of oblivion, and it's the way the club is being run. If we'd got Qatar or Elon Musk and they'd come into the club, they wouldn't need to sack people because the finances would be very different, regardless of what's happening on the pitch. So it's not the responsibility of Ruben Amorim at all, and he shouldn't be taking it. Absolutely. I mean, look, we've got a bit of a poll going on here as well. Has Amorim made United worse? I put this out this morning because I saw it in the Daily Mail get posted out this morning as an article. Has Ruben Amorim made United worse? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, what are they trying to do? Drip, 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 drip. We've had it this week, haven't we, in the Manchester Evening News? The players don't like the style of play. He doesn't talk to the players. Has Amorim made them worse? He's now coming out taking responsibility for job cuts. What are we doing again? We're walking straight down obvious street, aren't we? We're burning another manager. He's responsible for everything. And he's responsible for next to nothing. Absolutely. How has Amorim made Man United worse? He's come into a shit team and not been given any players, and we've got another injury crisis. How is he responsible for making Man United worse? Did Rangnick make Man United worse? We had bad results. The results got worse, but Rangnick wasn't responsible. Rangnick was publicly giving the reasons why and the solutions. Just because the results are getting worse doesn't mean it's Amorim who's caused it. This is just, I mean, it's rinse and repeat. It's the cycle, and I can't believe we're falling into it again. I really, really can't, but there you go. Patrick Lynch says, again, a manager is left out on a limb in more ways than one. Amorim has been set up for failure. What is the structure above doing? Because it appears to be nothing but cuts. Patrick, I didn't think this was going to happen with Amorim because it didn't happen with Rangnick, but we saw it happen with Ten Hag. Ollie never really did it. Talking for the club, a mouthpiece for the club. When asked about job cuts, it's not on him. He shouldn't be doing that. Maybe he loves INEOS. Maybe he loves the Glazers. But look, Amorim, you are making a big mistake. Things are heating up around our ownership. You haven't got a choice to make. Just manage the team. Do your job. But don't start backing INEOS. Don't start backing the Glazers because we're heading into difficult times and the fans have got your back, but the fans don't have the back of the owners. So you can't play both sides, and you certainly can't take responsibility for people who are making cuts for different reasons than you think. And was it not January where you didn't want to sell Garnacho and they were trying to sell Garnacho? So look, just do your job. Be a coach. Do not be a political piece for the owners of Man United because it didn't serve Ollie well and it won't serve you well. He is responsible. NAU, I've blocked you on That's Football and you're gone on here as well. Thank you very much for showing up. He's a troll. He was at it yesterday. Colin says, any fear Sir Jim is after buying into the club as a means to fund his failing companies, keep the debts high and use revenue to keep INEOS afloat, says Colin. If United lose today, who's going to get the blame? What low IQ agenda will be pushed? Onana or Casemiro? Place your bets, says that boy. Monoxide. Andre Smith, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for that as well. And Danish says, it's funny how when Amorim was appointed, he was a head coach. Now when it's all gone down, he's a manager. INEOS now have made him the scapegoat. Well, I certainly think he's the scapegoat if he's going to be responsible for that. Bit of journalism for you though, just to hold your thoughts on this. Man United play Spurs today. What price a Tell winner? Now, Tell was a player that Man United basically had a deal done with Bayern Munich, and then they backed off because they didn't like the £8 million deal. Spurs took that £8 million deal, and Man United didn't. Man United have now got injuries and would love to have Tell, but they didn't because they didn't want to do the money or they didn't have the money. Spurs did. Interesting bit of journalism here. Very difficult to get the exact figures, but you might notice today when Man United plays Spurs, you might notice some Stadia sponsorship from our current partial owners, INEOS. You'll see it on the seats. You'll see it around the stadium. INEOS Grenadier, I think it's a 4x4 machine that they do. Anyway, that's been a deal that INEOS did with Spurs before they even bought Man United, and it's a multi-year deal. Nobody can find how much INEOS are playing Spurs because I don't know why. it's £40 million for what they have on their shirt, but nobody really can tell you the figure that INEOS pay Spurs every year on this multi-year deal. So you're speculating, but it could be as much as £10 million a year. It could be as little as £4 million a year. But I tell you what, INEOS pays Spurs millions of pounds a year, every year. In a way, INEOS have bought Tel for Spurs, haven't they? And I know that wasn't their intent, but it just makes me laugh because Man United easily could have done something very similar to get some money into the club to get Tel. But no, we're not going to do that. We don't want to do that. We want the fans to pay for things. We want job cuts to pay for things. And yet INEOS actually are paying Spurs each year, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe £3 million a year. Not really seen that been spoken about by our Man United journalists recently in the January transfer window when Spurs are getting Tel and we're not willing to do it. And that money that INEOS are giving Spurs really technically helps them get hold of Tel. Why could they not have found a way to put the INEOS Grenadier or something like that sponsoring Man United for a little bit amount of money? It's hilarious, isn't it? It's absolutely hilarious. So if Tel scores today, technically, if you wanted to, you could say, well, INEOS have helped them get him, and they didn't help him get us. Come to us, did they? Crap journalism again that people just don't talk about. And I will talk about it, and I think more people will talk about it because Manchester United's strategy is to raise money through you. And you might be an employee that's about to get sacked. You might be a season ticket holder that's got to pay more. You might be a fan that's going to, be bombarded with adverts to buy the third goalkeeper kit. You might be a charity that doesn't get any money from Man United anymore. But Man United's strategy under INEOS and the Glazers is if you want transfers, you're paying for it. Not us. You're paying for it. And also, we might strip assets further, like we might sell a young player, but you will pay for what we want to spend on this football club. Whereas the contradiction is that INEOS actually do sponsorship deals with other Premier League clubs. And as many intelligent people have said, more intelligent than me when it comes to finance, there were ways that INEOS could have done sponsorship deals for Manchester United to get £5-10 million into the club per year over the next 5 years, which they haven't actually done. They've got, and when you look at Man City and you look at the APT rules, which they're trying to challenge, associated party transactions. So Man City or Newcastle, Saudi Airways or Etihad Airways, you can't give a deal that's not market value. INEOS have done a deal with Spurs which shows market value. So if they did a deal with Man United, the Premier League wouldn't be able to say no because INEOS could say, well, we've already done a deal with Spurs before we bought this club and that's the value of that, so we're just matching it here. There was ways they could get money into the football club without having to raise ticket prices, without having to potentially sell people, without having to potentially sack people. But people don't want to talk about this. They don't. They want to blame Amorim for it. They want to sell Garnacho. It's a joke the way they are doing things because, well, it's not a joke. It's fine what they're doing, but call it what it is. It's cuts and it's you lot paying for it whilst they don't have to pay for it because they've spunked all their money all over the Glazers, haven't they? They've given the Glazers £1 billion. And what have the Glazers done with that £1 billion? God knows, but it's not gone anywhere near Man United yet again. INEOS in sport is dying. Time to sell and retire to Showtime. And Cyril says, I understand the call for youth. People are sick of the first team and just want something new. There's only so long you can watch the same attitude out there. Look, we might see some young players today. I want to talk about like the Sancho, Pogba, Rashford story, but just in relation today, just in relation to playing Tottenham, there will be some young players playing today. I think this Morehouse player is quite interesting. I've been doing a little bit of research on him, spoken to a couple of people who know a lot about him. I think I'm right in saying that he's basically missed a year of football. Very exciting player, but he's sort of come back from injury recently, missed a lot of time. But an exciting midfielder who likes to carry the ball. And I don't mean he picks it up and runs, that would be handball. But you know what I mean? He's quite a dynamic player who's quite good at dribbling from the midfield. So, look, let's be honest. There is a sentimental way INEOS can manipulate you. Just start playing a load of young players. We're romantic about young players. Busby Babes, class of 92. It's cheap for them. Start playing young players. Start talking about the future. and maybe in a few years' time, these young players grow and become a good team. Do you think it's possible to build a team around young players without having 5 or 6 really senior world-class players like we did in the class of 92? In the modern game, can you bring through a team of teenagers and build a team? I don't think you can, but I think we might fall into the romance of it. I also think they'll start selling them as well. I don't think their strategy is to build a team. I think their strategy is to buy cheap, sell high. And I think that's what we're going to do. And I think it would be very dangerous to start going, in 5 years' time, we're going to have a team with Morehouse, Obi Martin, Lasali, Mainu, Garnacho. I think in 5 years' time, you might have 3 or 4 of them. And in 5 years' time, 2 or 3 of them might have been sold to Arsenal or Chelsea or something like that. I think that's the strategy of United now. I think it's buy cheap, sell high. I think they're trying to turn us into the new Brighton. And in the absence of any evidence, and in relation to their recent behaviour, don't tell me to trust that we're going to build a title-winning team with young talent when look at what they've done in the last 6 months. They're not to be trusted. I think they're money people, and I think that they will sell these young players as they get better because it's pure profit. And I think we might be building a conveyor belt, not a team. And I don't know that you can build a title-winning team with exclusively young players, and I can't see the senior players there, like the Cantonars or the Keanes or the Bruces or the Irwins, to nurture them. So I think we might become an exciting team that is a pathway for youth to a certain point where you sell it. And I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but some of you saw it coming, to be fair. I don't trust this club with the youth now anyway, says Cyril. No, I don't trust this club with the youth anymore, which is why I was so adamantly outspoken in January about the stories about selling Mainu or Garnacho, because I think once you've done it once, you'll do it again and again and again. Hi, Mark. If INEOS was the only option on the table, would you have accepted their bid or just continue with the Glazers? Just some food for thought, says the 2 Pump. Great question. If I had the choice between INEOS bailing the Glazers out or not, I would 100% take INEOS not bailing them out. INEOS bailing them out is perfect because it's a British owner who is a local lad with connections to the government, and everybody goes, oh, he's a local lad, and it protects everybody. If they hadn't got INEOS, whoever bailed them out, if somebody else had bailed them out, would have been instantly repulsive to United fans, because it wouldn't have been a local lad, a British local lad. It would have been a hedge fund from America or whatever, and people would not have swallowed that. So it would have got worse a lot quicker than it has at the moment. I feel that INEOS found their golden egg. Sorry, Glazers found their golden egg in INEOS. INEOS have the political connections to get the regeneration of the area going up. They also are British and homegrown and local, and that protected this deal and allowed it to go through. And I would 100% rather INEOS had nothing to do with it, because I think the Glazers would be virtually gone by now. I think the protests would have started instantly. I think a lot more would have started instantly. You look at our results since INEOS have come in over, just over 12 months. Imagine those results with an American hedge fund and the Glazers. It would have just gone to shit really, really quickly. I actually think Glazers with INEOS, the results on the pitch have been shite. What's been going on off the pitch has been shite. But actually, there hasn't been any movements. There hasn't been any protests until in a couple of weeks' time. There hasn't been any movement from fan groups or anything like that. It's taken a year of shit for people to do anything, because I think people have quite rightly been going, he's a local lad. It's Sir Jim Radcliffe. He supports Man United. Let's give him a chance. And I think that 12 months would never have happened if INEOS hadn't bailed them out, because who else was going to come in and have all those things that would have given it time? Good question. They sacked Ashworth in a jiffy, which makes me think they'll eventually sack Amorim, says Nigel. Maka says, you've complained for years about Glazers. INEOS come in and try and stop stupid spending and you moan. The club is sinking and they're holding it up. Yeah, Maka, I think you need to go and understand what we're talking about, because this community is not for you. And I'm not even going to bite on your troll comments. If you think what INEOS are doing to this football club was the best option, then happy Sunday. But they bailed the Glazers out. And if you would have done that, well, get your INEOS Grenadiers car, get your sanitizer, get your bike and jog on. Lone Raz, Mr. Bayern, says Eric, I don't know what you're talking about. INEOS in sport is dying. Sorry about the trolls. It is still Toxic Sunday, which I forgot about completely. There's weirdos in the chat. Liam says, I wouldn't mind Sancho back as long as he fits into Amorim's system or squad depth. Okay, let's move. So, a lot of people yesterday. Ahmad's had an operation. Romano says he could be out for the season. Martinez has had an operation. He's updated and said it went very, very well. But those two players are probably out for the season. So we go with what we've got. Obviously, we've got other injuries as well. I mean, I thought Luke Shaw was back last Monday. Can I just say, I thought Luke Shaw was back last Monday. Remember the spin from the club and the journalists that Luke Shaw was going to be back on Monday? Yeah, it's now the following Sunday. Is he in the matchday squad? It's an interesting one, isn't it? How we get fed loads of shit just to sort of try and calm the conversation, but. Let's talk about Sancho. I mean, look, I've done a bit of digging on this morning. What is the likelihood of Paul Pogba, Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho coming back to Manchester United? And I think it's a responsibility of a community like this to, when we've got bigger issues to discuss, like what's going on at our football club, we cannot get distracted by nonsense if it's nonsense. So Paul Pogba actually can't play football till the middle of March. That is, I think it's to do with his ban. He can't play till the middle of March. The two favourites to sign Paul Pogba at the moment are Inter Miami and Fenerbahce. So that sort of says the level of where Paul Pogba's comeback is expected to be. So Paul Pogba would obviously love to play for Man United. He needs to get the exposure back. He's on that comeback trail. So he would love to come to Manchester United. But is Paul Pogba in the middle of March, when there's an international break, so the start of April, by the time he's fit, maybe the middle of April, does it suit Paul Pogba to come to Manchester United? Well, it suits him, but does it suit Man United for Paul Pogba to come to Manchester United and potentially not be anywhere near match fit until the middle of April? That's 2 months' time. And you get the circus around it. I don't... If he was 27, maybe it's worth a risk. But at 33 or 32, hasn't played football for 18 months, was injury prone before that. He's got to get up to match fitness. Can't play till the middle of March, but then it's an international break. Wouldn't be till April. I just think it's hype and smoke and mirrors. I really do. I just don't think there's any common sense attached to that at all, even though it's, fantasy. And also, he plays in a position that I don't think would actually help us. I don't think Paul Pogba in a pivot is going to work, and I don't think Paul Pogba as an attacking midfielder in that system is going to work. I don't actually think he suits our system anyway. And on top of that, Mainu will probably be back by then. We've still got Casemiro till the end of the season. Agarte and Collier's injuries aren't that long term. Bruno can play that position. We're actually quite well stacked where Paul Pogba plays. If we're talking about Jadon Sancho or Marcus Rashford, they do play in positions where we do need players. Like, we do need attackers or people who can play out wide. Whether Sancho or Rashford would work in that system is debatable as to whether they'd be defensively good enough. But they are both players that are loaned out at the moment. And they both play in positions that would be relevant to where we've got massive problems. So let's talk about Jadon Sancho before we talk about Rashford, because I can give you the factual update and the opinion update. So Ruben Amorim was asked whether Sancho coming back to Manchester United in the summer was a possibility. He said, look, I'm focused on my players and my problems. Sancho is not my problem. I'm focused on winning against Tottenham and using all the players we have to do that. Man United, and look, this is all information that I've got this morning. Manchester United can take Jadon Sancho back from Chelsea. They can say to Chelsea, you don't have to take the obligation to buy, we will take him back. And Chelsea could say, well, we are taking the obligation to buy because that's our choice. Or they could say, oh, thank God, yeah, take him back. So he could come back, Jadon Sancho, if Man United wanted to say to Chelsea, we don't want to take the 25 million and the obligation to buy, we want him back, do you want to do a deal? And they can just rip it all up. That could happen. But if Man United did that when they're making sackings, they'd be absolutely stupid. This is £25 million into the club in the summer, guaranteed, unless Chelsea finish in the bottom half. He's also on about 300 grand a week. So from a business point of view, Man United are not going to do this. They're not bringing him back. Financially, it would be thick. You'd lose 25 million, which you'll never get back, and you'd have to pay him 300 grand a week. So we're not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. Financially, this morning, I was talking to someone and they said financially, they will just not do that. It would be stupid, it would be ridiculed, and INEOS would be under more pressure than they are now. Also, Jadon Sancho might not want to come back anyway. So forget the Sancho thing, and whoever asked that question in that press conference, I mean, again, the lack of research is astounding. Why didn't you ask a question about INEOS and their sponsorship deal with Spurs potentially helping them buy Tel when Amorim couldn't? I mean, what a great question that would have been, which was missed, by the way. What a great question it would have been to say to Ruben Amorim. Obviously, it was frustrating that you didn't get any players in January. What do you think about the fact that INEOS fund Spurs and that money potentially helped them get Tel? I'd love to have seen Amorim's response to that, because you've already done the damage with the question. But no, let's ask a question about Jadon Sancho that I haven't researched, and a 5-year-old could research and find out that that's just not going to happen. Also, let me get rid of you as well. A few toxic people on a Sunday morning. Go for a walk, get a pub lunch, get some fresh air, clean your car out. You know, don't waste your life on here being toxic. Rogello, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. I can already predict Monday's headlines after today's loss. Amorim's intense training responsible for United's injury crisis, as Ruben. Mate, it's definitely started. Definitely started. As I said, you've got articles this morning, has Amorim made Man United worse? You've got headlines this morning where Amorim himself is blaming himself for people getting sackings. That is spin. I don't know why Amorim's putting that out. I mean, I don't know what he's thinking with that. I just want to circle back. As a Man United manager, why, and maybe you can answer me, why would you say I'm responsible for people losing their job? Why would you put that on you to protect those upstairs who've actually done it? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I just don't know. Pratt of the Day award is needed, says Brinda. I believe that the Glazers personally scouted INEOS, says Fraz. Well, wasn't it the year before that? Wasn't it? I don't know whether it was the year before. The Glazers put Man United up for sale in the November, didn't they? And I think in the previous August, there was an interview with Sir Jim Radcliffe where he said the Glazers are good people. So we'll never know the truth, but some people feel it was something that had been in the works before. Look, what is not in doubt is that Sir Jim Radcliffe always speaks positively about the Glazers and likes them. From an outside perspective, you're at worse at the moment, but if you back the manager, then I believe it's the best chance you've had in years, says Tots. Have you heard anything more about potential protests? Looking forward to seeing you in Dublin, March, says Colin. Yes, there is a protest ahead of the Arsenal game 2 weeks today. 2 weeks today? No, it can't be 2 weeks today. I think it's 4 weeks today. Arsenal, no, 9th of March, so 3 weeks today. Yeah, it must be 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks today, Arsenal game. At Old Trafford. I saw something actually. Somebody said, why are they waiting 3 weeks to protest against Arsenal? They should be doing it against Spurs. And I was laughing. I was like, we're away to Spurs. Why would you why would you do a protest at an away ground? Of course it's got to be at Man United. Ryan's asked a great question, says Samson. We should give the young base, the fan base time. And Liam Fernan says, I wouldn't mind Sancho back as long as he fits into the system. Well, maybe we've answered that, Liam. Why was INEOS bid ratified when they can't afford to run the club, says Ryan. And hi, Mark, just need 6 points, then we're clear of relegation. Screw the Premier League and go for Europa, says Mrs. Stone. Adrian C says, debt. I thought you said Delo. Debt is crippling our club so much. That is, I really did read that, as Delo is crippling our club so much. Debt is because Delo, D-L-O-T, and that is D-E-B-T. Debt is crippling our club so much. That is someone came in and offered us a naming rights deal for Old Trafford that will 100% be used to clear the debt. I'd bite their hands off to take it, says Adrian. Rogelio, welcome to the members club. The thing is, though, like, I just find the journalistic element around Man United at the moment is absolutely shocking. It's so bad. These people are not journalists, and I don't know why. They're either not capable of being journalists, or they're terrified of biting the hand that feeds them, which is the club. Because they're more than capable of writing bullshit about dressing room sources to create unease in the dressing room, make up stuff about players aren't close to the manager and the training system's not liked by the players. All of that's bullshit, and they're more than happy to write that bullshit. But why won't they write about, like I say, the land? Why won't they write about the INEOS deal with Spurs ahead of the Spurs game, and maybe how that was money going into Spurs that helps them do a deal in January, but we can't do it because they won't put any more money in? There's some really good angles of journalistic work that can be done, and people just don't do it because they want to, just go. They're all like Daily Star journalists, I think. They just write shit. And there's so much that could be done around Manchester United, and people just don't do it. And I don't really understand why they don't do it. And it will be, exactly like Ruben says, the next thing will be, they'll be moaning about Amorim's training ahead of, because of the injuries. I mean, that will be a Monday morning article. Amorim's intense training responsible for injuries. But a year ago, it was Ten Hag's intense training that was responsible for injuries. And maybe the training is responsible for the injuries, but that's not the headline, is it? The headline is Man United's squad not capable of playing modern football. Man United's physical fitness so weak they actually can't develop a footballing side to play in the Premier League in 2025. That's the actual headline, because Amorim's system worked absolutely fine in Sporting, and Ten Hag's system worked absolutely fine in Ajax. And Pep's system works very, very well at Man City, and Slot's works very well at Liverpool, and Brighton's works very well at Brighton, and they're all intense teams who run around a lot with intensity and stamina. But the minute we try and train our players to do it, they drop like flies. Now, I don't think that Ahmad, Martinez, Mason Mount, Luke Shaw are all weirdly, coincidentally, weak players with low physical thresholds. I think it's the way our fitness department prepares these players. Like, these players are all from different areas of the world, from different upbringings, with different fitness programs before they come to Man United. They come to Man United and they all pick up the same injuries. That's not the manager, and it's not the player. That's the way we train our players. That's the real quiz. It's not about Amorim makes them run too hard, because he needs to make them run too hard because they don't run enough. If I'm a coach for a 100-metre sprinter and they want to win the Olympics, and I'm looking at everyone else that's quicker than them, I'm like, you've got to run quicker. If you want to win that gold, you've got to run quicker. And then they start running quicker and they pull the hamstring. And I go, okay, right. When you're back fit again, if I make you run slower so you don't pull your hamstring, you can't win gold. So should we just be shit? Or do you give in? Or do I replace you? Or do we find why you're doing that and can we make you quicker? And United have never found out why we keep getting all these injuries, but we do keep getting all these injuries no matter who the manager is. The second we try and have a week of training where we try and up the intensity, people fall away. And it's been going on for years. It was happening under Jose. It was happening under Ollie. It was happening under Sir Alex towards the end. There's something fundamentally wrong there. And I'm stunned, because one thing I would say about INEOS and Sir David Brailsford, when you look at the cycling background and the margins, I would have thought sports science was absolutely the thing they were going to be great at. And in a year, nothing has changed with that fitness department. And I've said it before, little things as well. I don't think when I see Man United players in the summer or in an international break, you know, I'm with Dave the coach doing this, or I'm with Karen the cardio girl or whatever. Like, they shouldn't be doing that. If these are elite footballers and you are Manchester United, there should be no time for players to be doing individual training plans with third-party trainers. Carrington is there. They live there. If you want to go and do extra work, let's get a coach in and let's do it. But you follow this program, you follow this diet, you follow this sleeping pan. They've all got these things on their arms. We clearly take the piss when it comes to the approach to physical fitness at Manchester United. And our injury record reflects that. And God knows what players are doing in their own time. Do we let them go to bed at midnight? Do we let them go and play golf? Are we letting them bloody have a glass of wine 2 nights before a game? All of this feeds into physical fitness. And United have dropped the ball. And it's got nothing to do with the manager. Nothing to do with the manager. Rashford return. Okay, so Rashford's different to Sancho. We've spoken about Pogba. Is Rashford likely to come back? So the digging I've done on this is that I can't remember. I should have done this. I apologise. Not brilliant journalism then. I don't know how much Aston Villa are paying Manchester United for Marcus Rashford. But could Man United recall Rashford, or I suppose to a certain extent Anthony? First and foremost, most important thing here is if Man United tried to do it, neither player wants to come back. Understandably, Anthony is happy in Spain, respects Amorim, respects Man United, but obviously wasn't getting the game time he wanted. He's gone to Spain, he's had a good start, he's enjoying it there, and he wants to stay there and, you know, play football. So Anthony doesn't want to come back. Marcus Rashford, the same, but obviously his relationship with Amorim is completely and utterly broken. So you'd be taking a player that is out of the United bubble, who is at a team where they attack a lot, with a manager he's getting on with at the moment, in a positive frame of mind, in a different scenario. So he doesn't want to come back either under the current situation. So neither player actually wants to come back. That's the starting point. Could Man United bring them back? Only if they do what would be required from that loan deal. So Aston Villa have paid Man United an amount of money for this loan deal, and they're also paying a proportion of his wages. So INEOS and the Glazers have already banked that money. It's like it's already on the books for the year. Like, we have a certain amount of money that we've got to make, otherwise we're going to be in trouble for PSR. So we've already done that deal and banked it on the Excel spreadsheet. So even if Amorim knocks on the door and says, I want Rashford back, and even if Rashford says, yes, I want to come back, from a footballing reason, okay, you could bring him back. But INEOS and the Glazers would go, no, because we've already banked that money against this football club and we need that money. And that loan deal from Villa and the wages they're covering, that's a few million to us that helps the club out. And we've already basically put it on the spreadsheet. If we bring him back, all that money goes back to Villa, plus we've got to pay them money to bring him back because there's a break clause on the loan. I don't know how much this is, and it's very difficult to find it out because it's not been put out there and nobody knows it. But if you break a loan term with a player, you have to pay Villa some money to bring him back. Unless Villa go, you can have him. But at the moment, they wouldn't do that, would they? Because they'd go, well, we sort of need Rashford, so we'd have to pay them money to get him back. So everybody's saying bring Rashford back or bring Anthony back. Again, unfortunately, there aren't many journalists that are even asked to write this, but we've already banked the money from Rashford and Anthony against our spreadsheet, and that money is very important to the club. But also, you'd have to give that money back and pay Betis or Villa maybe $1 million, maybe $2 million, I don't know, because you'd be breaking the terms of the loan. So yeah, it would be good to have an Anthony or a Rashford back at the moment because it's better than nothing, but we're up the creek without a paddle because financially we just can't do it. So anybody who's saying bring Anthony or Rashford back, it's not. I think some people think you just, you know, they're playing bloody FIFA or something where you just go, yeah, I brought them back. But I think even on FIFA, when you recall them from a loan, I mean, when I used to play career mode, I think if you bring a player back from loan, you still have to pay, even on EAFC. So in real life, that's how it works. He won't come back, but good. He looks electric, says Roberts. I think the real question, mate, you said God, he looks electric. Robert, I would correct and say good. I absolutely love the fact that Villa fans and people are saying Rashford looks electric. I watched it back last night. I thought he did okay. The fact that people want to hype it up to electric, happy days. I hope he puts in performances like that and better all the way till the end of May, because that'll be a lovely £40 million straight into the football club, because he's not coming back to United. That's not happening. unless Amorim gets the sack. And if we sack Amorim and bring Rashford back, well, we're back where we were every time we've sacked a manager for the last 10 years. So the cycle would continue. But he is not going to come back. That Amorim-Rashford relationship is not going to get mended. Like, it's just not. And I understand that from Rashford's point of view. I mean, look, this manager basically rinsed him every week. Deservedly so, but some would say he didn't need to publicly say it. I think he did, because I think he's trying to rebuild the football club, but they're never going to get back together. So Rashford doing well is very, very good for us, because I don't think he'll stay at Villa. He might, but I don't think he will. But I think there will be other offers for him as well. I think the real question is, should they come back, says Mrs. Stone. I wouldn't bring Sancho back. I agree with the financials. They're very, very good, and they look better by the day. I wouldn't bring Rashford back because, I don't think he wants to come back. And also, we'd lose money, so I wouldn't do it. Anthony, again, we're going to lose money. So look, we've worked through it. And Pogba I wouldn't bring back, because I just think it's just a circus, and he wouldn't be able to play until probably middle of April anyway, by which time our season could be over. I mean, if you could drop somebody into the team now at no cost, now is the time you need them, not in 2 months, and not a midfielder either. I mean, I'm looking at the game today, and I'm going, you know, can we show a bit of fight? I'm worried about today. I think, as I said, the headlines for me are that Tell's going to score. And he could have been a Man United player, and he probably should have been a Man United player, and we desperately needed to do that deal. And you get these people out there going, good on INEOS, not spending money. We've got to send a message, and look at the message now. They've got a player I really wish we had. And if they end up winning the Europa League and we don't, I mean, how ironic will it be if Spurs win the Europa League with Tell doing really well because United didn't want to spend 8 million? And yet INEOS sponsor Spurs and potentially are putting money into that club to help them do deals like that. The irony won't be lost on us, will it? But we've got to try and I think our only hope at the moment is the system. And Amorim was talking about the system actually in the press conference, and he said, I think people get obsessed with the system, but actually the problem is performance. Like, we're not playing the system I want because we're not performing to the level we need to. So what he's basically saying is, you know, people get hung up on the system, and they do, because their IQ in football is low. But people talk about change the system, change this, that, and the other. And what he's basically saying is, my system's very adaptable anyway. Like at Sporting against Man City, it wasn't a 3-4-3. It was almost a 5-4-1 when we didn't have the ball, and then it moved quickly into something else when we did. So what he was basically saying is, look, people get hung up on the system because people talk about change the 3-4-3 to a 4-3-3 or whatever like that. But what he was saying is basically people get hung up on the system, but we're not performing to my system anyway. So even if I change to a back four, the players aren't performing to play a back four either. We've got to sort performance out before we start talking about system. And people just think if we go to a flat back four, everyone's going to start playing well. Well, they're not going to. I mean, we watch them. The basics aren't happening. Just because you're playing a back four doesn't mean you're going to suddenly be able to pick up the runner or play a 5-yard pass or stop hitting long balls. I think our only way out of this is this absolute mess is performance. And we've been talking about that for a while. The league is over for us. If we beat Spurs because of a dodgy VAR decision, are we going to be really sat there at 6:30 tonight going, get in, have that, Ange, get in? Or are you going to be there if we draw 3-3 and we actually play really good football and go, you know what, I saw something there? And I think this is our only hope, is to actually see something. What I would say is, and it'll be quite interesting, is the players and the manager, how much scrutiny are they actually under? With all these injuries, do we start to look at the situation and go, this is a scenario not of Amorim's making, and there is a lot of frustration, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anger. But I think it's very obvious where all that needs to be pointed at the moment. And look, we spoke about it last night. The January transfer window was an opportunity that the owners of the football club said they were very relaxed to ignore. That was their PR on the final day of the window, we're very relaxed with our approach to the January transfer window. And most of the fan base were like, this is a disgrace. And here we are 2 weeks later, and we were right. So I can't look at the players and Amorim with too much blame attached, because they've been massively... I mean, I don't know whether you've ever seen the film Zulu about Rorke's Drift, where these soldiers are basically surrounded by this massive army, and they're outnumbered massively, and they don't have any reinforcements. So they've just got to go with what they've got. And that's almost like what Man United are like at the moment. They are depleted. They're not defeated, but they could have and should have been given more resources for this final battle until the end of May, and they haven't been given it. So we're sort of like, what can we do? Can we defy logic? But there are no resources coming. There are no reinforcements coming, and that blame is attached to the people who went, we think we've got enough, and we'll find out. Any chance that INEOS forced to bring this manager to give us some positivity because they knew what they planned with the window and cutting costs as Struddy? I mean, yeah, potentially. Do you think there is too much pressure on holding principles of Man United of old, which stops changes to potentially better the state of the club? I don't really understand what that means, Marcus. The only positive things about Man United is what we stand for from the past, because the changes that have been being made in the modern game don't represent the football club that I love. So what are you saying? We should abandon the past and embrace what's happening in the future? If we don't have what we are, then what are we? Probably a good place to finish. It's a 4:30 kickoff today, so we'll be live. I'll be live with you at 4 o'clock. I think countdown to kickoff will be about 3 or half 2, actually. It's going to be a very interesting game. My head's sort of messed up about it in more ways than one, but it's going to be a very, very interesting game. I'll leave you with this. Ruben, I think you speak to us so well. I think you are a breath of fresh air at a club that stinks. But please do not go down the pathway of protecting those above who are responsible for so much. You are not to blame for people getting sacked. And that's probably the worst thing you've said in 3 months at this football club. You need to retract it. You are not responsible, and the players are not responsible for sacking people when the club is paying tens of millions of pounds a year on debt interest. It's got nothing to do with success on the pitch. We've sacked people because the club is sinking because of debt. The Manchester United Football Club makes a lot of revenue. Who makes that revenue? You and the players. Whether you're shit or not, Man United make a lot of money. From TV, from kits, from sponsorships. Man United make a lot of money. The reason we're in a bad situation is because we pay a lot of our money out to somebody who put us in debt. So you saying it's your fault that people are getting sacked because the club needs to cut costs. Our revenue is not going down because of performance on the pitch. It's because of debt, and that is why we're sacking people. So you've missed the ball completely. You either need to educate yourself, or you need to think, why am I coming out putting a spin on things like that? Because you cannot be blamed for this. And part of me cynically thinks, is this another tactic to try and take the blame off the owners? Let's get Ruben responsible. Speak to you all later. Take care.